Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where Executive Coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hi, it's Alicia Cowan, and welcome to episode 12 of the Executive Coaching Podcast. I'm so excited to announce we have crossed the threshold of over 1,000 downloads, which I will say I have zero expectations when I first started this regarding, what that would look like, but was really pleasantly surprised and excited to see that. So thank you for all of you who have listened before and downloaded, and some of you have noted that you have shared with a friend, and I really, really appreciate it. So just want to say, if you've been here as a listener, thank you. And I want to give a quick update on what's going on around the Cowan household, as I usually do. Last time I recorded this and launched this, this past episode, we were talking about going to Taylor Swift. And so I'm going to report back, man, if you haven't had a chance to see Taylor Swift in concert, it is truly mind-blowing. So I have 4 daughters, and we took 3 of the 4 to the concert, and it was a blast. It was all 3 of their very first concert ever. And I let them know the bar is set really, really high after going to this concert, because I will say Taylor is a phenomenal performer. She had an amazing, beautiful set list, but also great costumes, amazing stage setups, and it was just so cool. It was in the Raymond James Stadium here, which is where the Tampa Bay Bucks play, and it was just outdoors, and the weather was beautiful, and it was just a perfect, amazing night. So highly recommend. 5 of 5 stars. And in regards to the house, I'll say this: we are working on building a house here in Wesley Chapel. Our door package finally came in. I think drywall inspection is happening this week, which means I'm hoping drywall is next. So I've been taking you on this journey with me, and it has been both quick and feeling like forever. So we're excited to hopefully get in this house later this year. So I'll keep you updated as things progress. But today, what we're going to talk about is delivering feedback. And why I have this topic on my mind is I've been recently doing group coaching with an amazing group of leaders within a cohort. We're preparing for the next session. And as I was picking their brains about annual performance reviews and delivering feedback, I asked what questions they wanted me to help maybe address in that next session. They came up with some amazing questions. And as I've been thinking about them and the responses that I'm going to craft for this next session, I wanted to share them here with you, because I think while annual performance reviews only happen one time a year, the concepts of delivering feedback and having regular conversations around performance should be happening all year round. And I want to talk a little bit about, again, some of those questions and what has been on my mind regarding delivering feedback in order to help you with this too. So some of the thoughts I think that we have as leaders around feedback that hold us back from delivering are that it just feels uncomfortable. Some people are fearful that if they deliver some tough feedback or things that aren't just all positive, that it might cause somebody to quit. Some leaders feel like they just don't know what to say, so they give very generic, bland, one-liner feedback when they're delivering performance reviews. I know, because I've read them for my years spent in HR. Some people just assume or make the assumption that the other person knows, or they hide behind, they should know how they're doing and they should know where they stand. Some people say, I'm just not a great people person. And I have even seen people go as far as to just delegate out all the people responsibilities to someone else on their team. And you can imagine how that goes if you have a peer managing their peers, and some of the people side of things with feedback. Not great outcomes all the time. And some people, again, I hear this a lot, and this is probably the most widely used thoughts to hide behind not delivering feedback is not having enough time and putting it off in favor of other work. And I would argue to say that all of these are just very they're altruistic sometimes sounding. Again, not all those thoughts are, but I think what happens is we're hiding behind feelings of fear or anxiousness around wanting to deliver feedback, or even thinking about delivering feedback. And that fear and anxiety kind of creeps in and it tries to trick us with these altruistic sounding thoughts. And the one exactly that I was thinking of was like, I don't want them to quit, right? Sounds nice, but it really works against us. And so I think that the biggest piece around this is noticing the mindset that you have when you come to deliver feedback. And again, it doesn't have to happen all the time. It could just happen in thinking about delivering certain types of feedback to one individual. It really starts with the mindset around what you're thinking as a leader and the thoughts that you have. Even if it's not necessarily bad intentioned, right? It's not like you're thinking, I don't want to support this person. But when you have things like, oh, I'm nervous how they're going to react to this, and I don't want them to quit, or something like that, just notice how that sounds great, but it's really all about yourself, right? It's about feeling uncomfortable or not wanting to feel uncomfortable, and the discomfort that may come from delivering that feedback, right? And so when you find yourself thinking thoughts that are more centered around yourself as the deliverer of this feedback rather than around the receiver of the feedback, notice how that is, again, holding not only you back as a leader, but also them. And so I hear that a lot. And again, I've coached a lot of leaders on it over the years. I have sat on both sides of the table of, helping the leader and helping the person that has received the feedback. And I'll tell you, at the end of the day, everyone wants to know where they stand, right? And even if they don't necessarily like the answer to that question, they do want to know where they stand. And even leaders, they're looking for answers on exactly what performance and success is looking like. So I want to start there. And that's why I wanted to start by talking about the mindset and some of the thoughts. And it's just noticing. And I think in the beginning, when we're starting to think about it, it's just slowing things down and kind of noticing the mindset that you have around yourself as a leader and just this delivery. I think a lot of times when we're thinking about delivering feedback, we want to jump to getting the right tactics. We want all the answers. We want, like, what do I say? How do I start? What's the right timing, right? All of the things around the mechanics of it. And really just starting with ourselves and just, again, thinking about who we are as leaders, how we want to show up, and how we're thinking about it. So as we think through this, I'm going to take you through some like coaching tips around, how do we flip from, sitting in some of these thoughts that are tripping us up and holding us back, trying to flip them around and examine them. And then also some tactics too, because I think what you get through the mindset, the tactics then can come easy, and it'll answer some of the questions around the team that I was helping to support. It'll answer some of those questions that they had. So you might have some of the same. So let's work through the first part of this. So if you have some of the thoughts, when you're thinking about delivering feedback to one individual, again, that may not be the most positive. Maybe it's an area of opportunity they have of where they need to improve. And you start to feel a little hesitation or nervousness around it, pause there and think about what you're thinking, right? Think about some of the thoughts that are tripping you up. Maybe jot them down. Like, what's that feeling that's present when you're thinking about delivering this feedback that you'd like to deliver? And then just sit with it and just notice it. And then think if you want to move out of that. Sometimes just noticing it will help bring some awareness there. But if you think about if it's more me centered than the other person, think about the recipient of the feedback and who you want to be for them. Thinking about the goals that they want to achieve, what they're going after, and what the work is, or whatever, behavior it is that they are driving to potentially change, or what result they're trying to deliver, thinking about what they have in mind for themselves, and then how you show up for them in your role as a leader to this person. And a lot of times I think leaders forget that your job, right, is to facilitate that success. And the best, fastest way to help facilitate their success is definitely not withholding feedback. It's a pro tip, obviously, is standing back. And if you're just observing and letting them fumble their way to success without giving feedback, that is not going to be the fastest way for them to succeed, right? The best, fastest way to help them facilitate their success is to share some of the feedback that you're observing, or potentially that others, again, are observing and sharing with you. If you feel that feedback is valid and can help them in their path to success, it's your, responsibility to share that with them. And so I think flipping it from, again, why am I nervous, and why am I hesitating, and why am I not delivering feedback, and flipping it, and again, being observant of that, a lot of times that is centered on yourself and what you're thinking as a leader versus them. And what's the best outcome? What is the best vehicle to allow them to get to where they want to be? So flip it. Okay. So thinking about that, again, the job that they're doing as a direct report is, right, they have that invitation to join you on your team, within this company, to do this work and exchange the value that they're bringing for the compensation that you're offering them, right? And with that invitation to do that work is to let them know where they're doing the job well, and then what areas they can improve upon, right? And so remember, that is a big, big piece of it. And I think, again, if we can get out of our own way by, again, working through our own mindset and who we want to be as leaders, we can really get to a place where feedback is just the norm, because we remember it's not about us, it's about them. So again, I coach so many leaders on both sides of this, both the leader and the direct report within the relationship. And I think the core desire, a lot of times, that leaders have is they want to know how they're doing. And even if there's areas that they need to improve upon, they want to hear it, And I think it's interesting. I was talking to a leader the other day, and she was, aspiring to, and again, she was very high up within her organization and achieved a great level of success, but still was striving for more. And she knew she had a lot of confidence in herself and her leadership capabilities, but she still wanted to know what was next. And she was going to her boss and asking for feedback about, like, what do I need to go to the next level? And I could just feel in the response that she was given, or that she was sharing with me, that it sounded like the supervisor was not willing or not ready to give feedback. It was like, well, just keep going, right? You just need more experience, more time. And not necessarily saying what is it that she needed to achieve within that time, or what is it that the time was going to give her. And it was just this very generic response where it just even felt confusing on the other end. And she wasn't sure, like, what does that mean? Right. And I think, again, so many leaders just want to know where they stand. Even if they know, again, they're generally doing a great job and have confidence in their abilities, they still may have aspirations to do more. And it's in our best interest and theirs to help them and help facilitate the success and be super clear and direct in the feedback. All right. So that was a lot about the mindset. It was a lot about how we want to show up as leaders and who we want to be, and thinking about the other person too on the other end of that. And that is a big piece of it. So I wanted to get through that, but I also wanted to share with you a couple of tactics. So in answering some of the questions that I had around some of these tactics, I'll share these with you. But I also think, I want to reference back to an earlier podcast where we talked about leadership style, and, like, who do you want to be as a leader? I think this is a great point, that if you answered some of those questions around your leadership style, perhaps, part of that was being direct, being great at communication, being transparent, all of those kind of North Stars that maybe are part of your leadership repertoire. This is a great time to bring those back out and say, okay, how does some of the tactics and habits that I want to put in place align with me as a leader, my leadership style? And so here's some tactics and ideas that maybe you want to put into place when you're thinking about delivering feedback and even prepping for an annual review. So number one, don't wait till the end of the year. So somebody had the question around, how do we remember it all when it gets to the draft that annual review? And the simple answer there is you don't. There's no possible way that our brain can just like whip out all of the great commentary around an entire year's worth of performance 12 months later. It's not that easy. So don't wait. Make it a regular part of again your habits. And talking about some tactics to how to do that is, I think a great one is using a one-on-one practice. So I talk a lot about having a really productive one-on-one with both your direct reports, your stakeholders, with your own boss, right? And this is a great way to get and deliver feedback. And you can even take that again into a more formalized and informal formalized touch base where you say, hey, let's just focus on talking about where you stand. And maybe it's a quarterly practice, maybe it's every 6 months, cadence, whatever works for you. But really making it, a conversation that doesn't have to happen once a year, but that can happen on a regular cadence where people know where they stand. And again, you can do this with your stakeholders to check in on feedback on your team. You can do it with your supervisor and talk to them about what's going on with both you and the team. But using that one-on-one practice. And again, if you, number two, are taking great notes, this is a great way to, again, remember it all at the end of the year. So using whatever format works for you. You can use a digital format. I love OneNote myself. Some people love Google Docs, but if you use a digital note-taking practice, great. Makes it really easy and searchable. Paper, totally fine. If you have it organized in such a manner, you can recall it later. But either way, tracking the notes and really making sure you have just this repository of significant things that have happened over the year. Great positive feedback, milestones that have been hit, all the gold stars over the year, and then anything that, again, you've noticed or picked up on. And again, you should be sharing that throughout the year. It shouldn't be a surprise to the recipient at the end of the year. But tracking the notes is a great way to not have to remember it all. Okay. Next tip and trick I have is I had a question around, I'm stuck on what to say. Like, I don't know where to start. I'm just stuck. And again, this is, I think, the outcome of this is sometimes we see this just one-liner feedback within performance reviews where it's just one sentence. So a really easy one is to grab a blank piece of paper, okay, and really quite simply just do a brain dump and use a mind map. So what that means is you take a blank piece of paper, I write the person's name in the middle of like the recipient of the feedback, and then just start writing. What are all the great milestones, accomplishments, wins, right? And then what are some of the areas that still are outstanding in terms of areas of opportunity, observations that we've had that could have gone better? Anything that, again, may be on the other end of the spectrum of their performance. So dump all your thoughts out. And once you get started, knowing that that piece of paper doesn't have to go anywhere, it's just a starting point so that you can really start to get unstuck. A great way to start to deliver the framework and craft it. Because I think what happens when we sit down in front of whatever the performance review mechanism is, like a formal review, and we start to like stare at that blank screen and go to type, we freeze. We're like, oh, it feels so permanent and formal, right? I think brain dumping and getting your thoughts out of your head onto a piece of paper and just kind of sketching out that information really, really can help you get unstuck. All right. Another question that I get is there such a thing as too much positive feedback? And if somebody gets too much positive feedback, are they going to go into cruise control and put it in neutral? And so my personal opinion on this is the answer is no. I don't believe there's such a thing as positive feedback. I think that delivering positive feedback reinforces behavior. I think that if you tell somebody what they're doing well and give them that feedback, it shows what you value and tells them that you'd like to see them repeat that behavior again. And it's a way of reinforcing that behavior. So in my mind, there's no way that we can control an employee's desire to just put it in cruise control and coast based on positive feedback. I think there's something else that's going on there that may cause them to put it in neutral and just go in cruise control. And I do believe in balance, but I don't think that there is ever a place where we can get to the point where there's just quote unquote too much positive feedback. So, and I think that's a great way to start. So if any of this resonates with you about being hesitant around delivering feedback and not knowing where to start, I think positive feedback actually is a great way to just start verbalizing it. So if you have a one-on-one practice, start putting in the wins and sharing, looking for those throughout the week, and then giving that positive feedback every single week and increasing it if you can to deliver positive feedback first. And then get in the habit of, hey, I've got some feedback for you. Let me share a win of what I observed over the past week. I think that you can start to get to the point where, again, you develop trust, you develop this communication pattern that's a little bit different maybe than what you've been practicing with your direct report. And then you can start feeling more comfortable, right, in that delivery and start sharing then some of the opportunities and some of the areas that you see for growth with them. So those are my tips. Those are some of the answers to some of the questions that I frequently hear out there. And I will say again, the mindset has to be first of knowing where you want to be as a leader and knowing that you can help facilitate the success of the recipient of this feedback, right? And so really, I think starting there, and then there's so many tips, tricks, and mechanics of like delivering feedback out there. There's, tons of information that you can find, and finding what works for you is most important. And I did share a couple of things that I've seen work and that are helpful, but by all means, find what works for you. I think the most important thing is putting it into practice and just starting today, not waiting to some milestone like end of year to deliver the feedback. We need to hear your voice, and hiding behind your voice and hiding from that delivery of the feedback doesn't benefit anyone. So get in the practice of doing it. It's okay to fumble through it and feel that discomfort and know that it's worth it. It's worth kind of working through it as a leader to benefit the person on the other side. All right. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you hanging out here with me, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowan. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at aliciacowancoaching.com/call.